The envelope sat on Olivia Bennett's marble counter, gold lettering announcing her ex-fiancé's law firm gala. Despite her recent promotion, the thought of attending alone made her stomach clench. Scrolling through contacts, she found no suitable +1. Then, a news headline caught her eye: Teacher saves student from fire, loses home. The photo showed a man with kind eyes carrying a child from flames. Olivia's finger hovered over her keyboard. $10,000 for one night of his time. A business transaction, nothing more. What she didn't realize was that money couldn't buy what she truly needed, and Lincoln Hayes had already lost everything money could replace. Olivia Bennett had mastered the art of appearing flawless. At 32, she'd climbed the corporate ladder with precision, collecting achievements like souvenirs. Her tailored suits and perfectly styled blonde hair were armor against a world that had taught her early that vulnerability was weakness. Beneath the polished exterior lived a woman haunted by her father walking out when she was 12, leaving only a note that read, "Some people aren't meant for family life." Her mother had crumbled, forcing young Olivia to become the strong one. When James had ended their engagement 3 years ago with nearly identical words, "I'm not cut out for this kind of commitment," the abandonment wound reopened, deeper than before. Her therapist called it success as survival, this relentless drive to prove her worth through achievement. Colleagues admired her sharp mind, but whispered about her icy demeanor. What they didn't see were the nights she sat alone in her perfect apartment, wondering why being exceptional wasn't enough to make people stay. The promotion to VP had been another victory in her carefully orchestrated life. Now, the final step was securing the global marketing director position. Being seen as well-connected at the gala, where half of Horizon's board would be present, was crucial to that plan. Lincoln Hayes had once believed he was building something permanent. A high school English teacher with a passion for literature, he'd created a home filled with books and warmth for his adopted daughter, Mia. After his wife Sarah died from cancer 4 years ago, he'd channeled his grief into giving Mia the stability and love she deserved. At 34, Lincoln's life was modest but meaningful. His salary barely covered their small 2-bedroom house, but they had enough. He coached Mia's soccer team, hosted a reading club for struggling students, and somehow managed to keep going despite the hollow space Sarah had left behind. Then came the fire. He'd stayed late at school helping Mia's classmate when smoke began filling the classroom. Getting the child out had been instinct, but while they escaped, their home with all of Sarah's photos, Mia's drawings, and the life they'd carefully rebuilt was gone. Now, living in his cousin's guest room with 8-year-old Mia, Lincoln was trying to navigate insurance claims that fell devastatingly short. The media attention made him uncomfortable. He wasn't a hero, just someone who couldn't bear the thought of another loss. The $10,000 offer sitting in his inbox seemed like a lifeline thrown from another world, one that might help him rebuild what Mia needed most. Home. Serendipity Coffee was neutral territory, halfway between Lincoln's school and Olivia's office. She arrived early, selecting a table with strategic advantages. Corner position, clear view of the door, minimal audience for this awkward negotiation. She wasn't prepared for Lincoln's entrance. No suit, just clean dark jeans, and a blue button-down with rolled sleeves. He scanned the room with a teacher's awareness, immediately noticing her, despite her attempt to appear casually engrossed in her phone. "Miss Bennett?" he approached, extending his hand. Lincoln Hayes. His handshake was firm but not domineering. Up close, the shadows under his eyes were more pronounced than in the news photo, but his gaze was direct and unguarded. "Please, call me Olivia," she replied, gesturing to the chair across from her. "Thank you for coming." "To be honest, I almost didn't," Lincoln said, settling into the seat. "Your offer was unexpected." Olivia launched into her prepared explanation: the gala, networking opportunities, her need for a respectable companion delivered with the same efficiency she used in boardroom presentations. Lincoln listened without interruption, then asked simply, "Why me?" The question caught her off guard. Most men would have already been calculating how to spend the money. "Because you saved that child without thinking of yourself," she answered, more honestly than intended. "That commands a certain respect." A shadow crossed his face. "I'm not interested in being anyone's hero prop, Miss Bennett." "That's not," she began defensively, then stopped, recognizing the integrity in his response. "Fair enough. I apologize if that's how it came across." When he returned with their drinks, she tried again. "Look, Mr. Hayes." "Lincoln," he corrected quietly. "Lincoln. I need a date who won't embarrass me in front of my ex and his crowd of legal sharks. You need money to rebuild. It's a simple transaction." He studied her for a long moment, then glanced at his watch. "I have to pick up my daughter from my cousin's in an hour." "You have a child?" The news articles hadn't mentioned that. "Mia. She's 8. His voice softened. She lost her mother 4 years ago, and now our home. The insurance won't cover everything we lost. Olivia's throat tightened unexpectedly. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're luckier than many. He took a sip of his coffee. When is this gala? 2 weeks from Saturday. I'll arrange proper attire, of course. Lincoln's eyes met hers with surprising perception. You're not just trying to impress an ex, are you? There's something more at stake. Instead of the polished half-truth she'd prepared, Olivia found herself saying, there's a promotion coming. Global Marketing Director. Being seen as well-connected helps. He nodded slowly. All right, Miss Bennett. I'll be your +1. But I have conditions. First, he began, half the money goes directly to a college fund for Mia. Non-negotiable. Olivia nodded. I can have my financial advisor set that up. Second, this remains confidential. My students and colleagues don't need to know about this arrangement. Agreed. Discretion serves us both. Lincoln hesitated before continuing. Third, I won't pretend to be something I'm not. I'll wear the suit, learn which fork to use, but I won't invent a different background or profession. Olivia's fingers tapped against her cup. This complicated things, but she respected his integrity. That's fine, but we should align on our connection. How we met. The truth, modified, Lincoln suggested. We can say we met through the school's corporate sponsorship program. Your company does community outreach, I assume? We do, she confirmed, impressed by his quick thinking. And finally, he added, I'll need 2 evenings to practice whatever social skills this event requires. I'm comfortable with students and parents, not CEOs and lawyers. Olivia found herself smiling slightly. That's actually sensible. She reached into her briefcase and produced a contract with the terms they'd discussed. Lincoln read it carefully before signing. There's one more thing, Lincoln said, his expression serious. I need a +1 myself, for Mia's school art showcase. It's the night before your gala. Olivia blinked in surprise. You want me to attend a children's art show? Mia lost her artwork in the fire. She's been recreating her favorite piece for this showcase. His eyes held hers steadily. Consider it part of our rehearsal. Something about his quiet advocacy for his daughter resonated deeper than Olivia wanted to admit. This wasn't in her plan, but she found herself nodding. Deal. Lincoln arrived at Olivia's penthouse for their first practice session with obvious discomfort. The doorman's scrutiny and the private elevator had already made him feel out of place before he even knocked on her door. Olivia answered wearing a sleek black dress, her hair pulled back in a professional style that emphasized her sharp cheekbones and clear blue eyes. Right on time, she noted, gesturing him inside. Lincoln stepped into a space that looked more like a luxury hotel suite than a home. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the city skyline, minimalist furniture in muted tones arranged with mathematical precision, and not a single personal photo visible. I thought we'd start with dinner etiquette, she explained, all business. The gala will include a 5-course meal. For the next hour, she guided him through formal dining rules. Lincoln proved a quick study, asking thoughtful questions, and making occasional self-deprecating jokes about his usual dinner companion's preference for dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. When he mentioned Mia's habit of saving the best bite for last, something in Olivia's expression softened momentarily. My father used to say that was the mark of an optimist, she remarked. Then immediately changed the subject. Now, about dancing. There will be a formal portion after dinner. She connected her phone to hidden speakers, and classical music filled the apartment. Stepping closer, she positioned his hand at her waist with clinical detachment. Basic waltz. 1 2 3, 1 2 3. Just follow my lead initially. But as they began moving, it became apparent that Lincoln already knew the steps. You've done this before, she observed, surprise evident in her voice. Sarah, my wife, loved classic movies. We used to practice in our living room, he explained, the memory bringing both warmth and sadness to his eyes. Olivia found herself unconsciously relaxing into his lead, noting how different it felt from James's approach to dancing where every movement had been a calculated performance for onlookers. When the music ended, they remained momentarily connected. An unexpected moment of genuine synchronicity between them. Lincoln stepped back first. Your turn to learn something, he said, breaking the spell. If we're going to be convincing, you should know something about me too. Like what I actually teach. Fair enough. What subject? English literature. Currently, my 8th graders are studying To Kill a Mockingbird. Olivia's professional mask slipped. That was my favorite book in school. Mine too, he admitted. Though trying to make teenagers appreciate Atticus Finch's moral courage is an uphill battle some days. For the first time, The conversation flowed naturally as they discussed the novel, revealing more about each other through their interpretations than any resume could convey. The elementary school hallways buzzed with excitement as families gathered for the art showcase. Olivia felt profoundly out of place among the chaotic energy of children and parents, having chosen dark jeans and a cashmere sweater instead of her usual business attire. Lincoln met her at the entrance, a subtle relief crossing his features when he saw her. "You came. We had a deal," she reminded him, though they both recognized she could have easily found an excuse to cancel. "Mia's nervous," he confided, guiding her through the crowd. "This is her first big event since the fire." They stopped before a small girl with dark curly hair and Lincoln's same thoughtful eyes, who was arranging colored paper stars around her artworks display. "Mia," Lincoln said gently, "this is Miss Bennett." The child looked up, studying Olivia with uncanny perception. "Dad said you're like the owl from the Midnight Library." "I think he's right." Olivia knelt to meet her gaze. "You can call me Olivia. Your father tells me you're quite the artist." Mia's solemn expression broke into a tentative smile. "Do you want to see my painting? It's not as good as the original, but Dad says it's even better because I made it twice." "I'd love to." Mia led them to her display, proudly revealing a watercolor painting of a small house with 3 figures in the yard, clearly Lincoln, herself, and a woman with a warm smile who could only be Sarah. "This was our family," Mia explained matter-of-factly. "My first painting got burned up, but I remembered the important parts." Something tightened in Olivia's chest as she noted the care with which Mia had painted the woman's face, preserving a mother's features she was likely beginning to forget. "It's beautiful," Olivia said sincerely. "You have a wonderful talent for capturing feeling." Mia beamed at the specific compliment. "Dad's taking me for ice cream after. Do you want to come?" Before Olivia could formulate a polite decline, a sharp voice cut through the moment. "Lincoln?" "Lincoln Hayes." They turned to find a polished woman in her 40s approaching, her expression a calculated mix of surprise and concern. "Rachel," Lincoln acknowledged, his posture stiffening slightly. "How are you?" "Well, you know, busy with the foundation as always," she replied, her gaze sliding curiously to Olivia, then fixing on Mia with exaggerated sympathy. "And sweet Mia. We were all just devastated to hear about your house. Such a tragedy." Rachel continued, "The board was just discussing your situation yesterday. Such a shame about the insurance shortfall. If only Sarah had maintained her position on our education committee, you'd have had access to our emergency fund for faculty families." The calculated cruelty of the comment hung in the air. Lincoln's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure for Mia's sake. "We're managing just fine," he said evenly. Of course. Rachel's attention shifted to Olivia. "And you are?" Before Lincoln could answer, Olivia extended her hand with the same commanding presence she used in hostile takeover meetings. "Olivia Bennett, VP of Marketing at Horizon Investments. Lincoln and I are together." She let the ambiguity of the statement hang intentionally. "We're actually discussing a significant grant for the school's literacy program." Rachel's expression faltered. "Oh, I wasn't aware the school was receiving corporate funding. It's still in development," Olivia smiled with practiced precision. "Though I'm curious why the foundation's emergency fund wasn't automatically extended to Mr. Hayes, given the circumstances. That seems like an oversight my company would find concerning when evaluating partnership opportunities." The veiled threat landed perfectly. Rachel backpedaled. "There must have been a miscommunication. I'll speak to the board immediately." Later, at the ice cream shop, watching Mia carefully arranging her sprinkles while Lincoln wiped vanilla from her chin, Olivia realized with alarming clarity that tomorrow's gala performance would require more acting than she'd anticipated, not to feign connection, but to hide how unexpectedly real it had become. The night of the gala arrived with unseasonable rain. Lincoln stepped from the cab in front of Olivia's building, the doorman recognizing him this time with a genuine nod. Upstairs, Olivia appeared in a midnight blue gown that made her look like she'd stepped from the pages of a high-fashion magazine. Her usual confidence seemed slightly fractured, however, as she fussed with an earring that refused to cooperate. "Here," Lincoln offered, stepping forward. Years of managing Mia's small buttons and clasps had made his fingers surprisingly deft with such tasks. "Thank you," she said, stepping back to observe him in the tailored tuxedo she'd arranged. "You clean up well, Mr. Hayes." High praise from the marketing executive, he replied with a small smile. "Mia said I look like her principal, but less scary." The mention of Mia eased some tension from Olivia's shoulders. "How is she doing after the showcase?" "Better. Your intervention with Rachel worked, by the way. The foundation discovered an oversight and approved emergency housing assistance." "Good," Olivia said simply, though the satisfaction in her eyes revealed how much it mattered to her. The ride to the gala was quiet until Olivia broke the silence. "There's something you should know about James, my ex." Lincoln turned to face her, giving her his full attention. "The story most people know is that we grew apart, mutual decision, all very civilized," she continued, staring straight ahead. "The truth is he left a week before our wedding. Said he'd realized he wasn't cut out for commitment while on his bachelor trip." "I'm sorry," Lincoln said, the simple words carrying genuine weight. "It's fine. Ancient history." She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her dress. "I just thought you should know, in case it comes up." Lincoln considered her for a moment. "My turn, then." Olivia looked at him questioningly. "Sarah died of ovarian cancer. She was a science teacher we met at a faculty mixer. When Mia came to us, she was 4, severely neglected by her biological parents. The adoption was finalized just 6 months before Sarah's diagnosis. The raw facts, delivered without embellishment, hung between them." "How did you do it?" Olivia asked softly. "Keep going, I mean." Lincoln gazed out at the rainy city passing by. "One day at a time. For Mia. And because Sarah made me promise not to let her death define our lives." He turned back to Olivia. "What about you? How did you rebuild?" "Work," she admitted. "I threw myself into becoming indispensable. Figured if I was valuable enough professionally, the personal rejection wouldn't matter." "Did it work?" The question was gentle but direct. Olivia's carefully composed expression wavered. "Tonight will tell, won't it?" she deflected, as the car pulled up to the glittering venue. As they navigated the crowd, Lincoln proved surprisingly adept at social interactions, his genuine interest in people a refreshing contrast to the strategic networking surrounding them. During dinner, when one partner's wife made a dismissive comment about teachers who just can't cut it in the real world, Lincoln responded with such eloquent passion about the transformative power of education that even James, watching from 2 tables away, seemed begrudgingly impressed. Later, as they swayed together on the dance floor, Olivia murmured, "You're doing exceptionally well for someone who claimed to need practice." "I'm a quick study," he replied. "Though I'm still trying to understand the politics of who speaks to whom and why that woman in the red dress keeps glaring at you." "James's new fiancée," Olivia explained, keeping her expression neutral. "Apparently, I'm still a threat, despite being too career-focused for a real relationship." Lincoln's hand tightened slightly at her waist. "Their loss is apparently my gain tonight." As they walked away from a brief, tense encounter with James, Lincoln squeezed her hand gently. "You didn't have to do that." "Do what?" "Use me to prove something to him." The observation, without accusation but with clear insight, stopped her short. "I'm sorry." "Old habits." Instead of dismissing her apology, Lincoln nodded in understanding. "We all have our defensive mechanisms. Yours is achievement, mine is self-sufficiency. Neither one is serving us particularly well, is it?" The unexpected vulnerability between them felt more intimate than their dance had been. In that moment, the lines between their arrangement and something authentic blurred dangerously. Later, Olivia's CEO approached with congratulations on securing the global director position. Lincoln's genuine pride in her achievement, without a trace of the competitive edge she was accustomed to from colleagues, touched something long dormant within her. In the car ride home, rain still falling softly against the windows, they sat in comfortable silence until Lincoln spoke. "You got what you wanted tonight. Respect, the promotion, proving something to your ex." "Yes," she acknowledged, though the victory felt different than she'd anticipated. "What happens now?" he asked, the question encompassing more than just their arrangement. "Now we complete our transaction," she said, professional tone returning. "The money will be transferred tomorrow, as agreed." Lincoln nodded, something like disappointment flickering across his features. "Of course." On Friday evening, an unexpected call from Lincoln appeared on her phone. "I was wondering if you might be free for dinner tomorrow. Mia's been asking about you." Olivia's first instinct was to fabricate an excuse. Their transaction was complete, further interaction wasn't part of the deal. But something in his voice, a mixture of hope and resignation, made her pause. "I'd like that," she found herself saying. The next evening, as Olivia helped Mia prepare for bed after dinner at their new apartment, the child asked abruptly, "Why were you sad when you came to my art show?" The question caught Olivia off guard. "What makes you think I was sad?" "Your eyes looked like Dad's did after Mom died. Like you were trying really hard not to let anyone see." "Sometimes adults get lonely, even when they're surrounded by people," Olivia said finally. "Even when they have important jobs or nice things." "Is that why you paid him to go to your party? Because you were lonely?" Olivia froze. "How did you?" "I heard Dad talking to Uncle Mike." He said he didn't know how to feel about taking money to be your date, but he needed it for my college fund. Mia's eyes were steady, not judgmental. I told him it was okay. Sometimes we need help, even grown-ups. Shame and wonder washed through Olivia in equal measure. This child, who had endured such profound losses, understood compassion better than she did. The following Monday, Olivia arrived at her office to find an email from the HR director requesting an urgent meeting. Puzzled, she made her way to the executive floor where Thomas Weldon, the COO, was waiting. "Olivia," Thomas began with false concern, "something concerning has come to our attention." He slid a folder across the table containing photos of her with Lincoln at the gala, along with bank records showing the $10,000 transfer. "Care to explain why you're paying a man to accompany you to corporate events?" "It was a personal donation," Olivia replied evenly, "to help a fire victim rebuild." The timing was coincidental. Thomas's smile didn't reach his eyes. "A donation that happens to coincide with him appearing as your date? The board might question your judgment, especially with the global director announcement scheduled for Friday." It wasn't subtle: withdraw from consideration, or face public embarrassment. Olivia felt a familiar ice forming around her heart, the protective shield she'd relied on for 20 years. That evening, Olivia drove to the cemetery, where she'd learned Sarah was buried. Standing before the simple headstone, she spoke aloud. "I don't know what I'm doing here," she began awkwardly. "I never met you, but your husband and daughter, they've become important to me, somehow. My company investigated him," she continued, anger edging her voice. "As if what we shared was just some financial transaction. And the worst part is it did start that way. I literally bought his time." "Who does that?" Tears she hadn't allowed herself in years spilled over. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Not of losing my job, I could find another. I'm terrified of being exactly like my father, exactly like James. Of walking away when things get complicated." As she turned to leave, her phone rang, Thomas Weldon's name flashing on the screen. "Thomas, what can I do for you?" "Olivia," his voice held false concern. "I wanted to follow up on our discussion. The board is meeting this afternoon to finalize the global director appointment, and, well, certain relationships might raise questions about judgment." "Actually, Thomas," she replied with surprising calm, "I've been meaning to speak with you about our company's educator support initiatives. They're woefully inadequate." "I don't see how that's relevant to." "It's directly relevant to my judgment as a potential director," she interrupted. "Because I believe a company's values should extend beyond profit margins." "The teacher your investigator so thoroughly researched? He saved a child's life, while losing everything he owned. The money your report flagged? A donation to help him rebuild, while our company's own community support programs failed." When Olivia called Lincoln to explain her plan, she expected resistance. Instead, he listened quietly, then said, "Tell me when and where." 3 hours later, they stood together outside the boardroom. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "You've worked 20 years for that position." "I'm not sacrificing my career," she countered. "I'm redefining it on my terms." As they entered the boardroom, Olivia felt the weight of 20 pairs of eyes assessing, judging. Thomas Weldon's smug expression suggested he expected her to stumble, to withdraw her candidacy gracefully. Instead, she introduced Lincoln as an educational consultant, then launched into a presentation about Horizon's responsibility to the communities it served. When Lincoln spoke about the reality of teaching in underfunded schools, about children like Mia who needed more than occasional corporate field trips, the board's attention shifted. By the time Olivia outlined her proposal for a comprehensive educational support program, one that would require her to step away from marketing and into a new community engagement leadership role, even Thomas looked uncertain. The CEO, Edward Harrington, studied her with new interest. "This is quite a departure from the global director position you've been pursuing, Olivia. Why the sudden change?" Olivia glanced at Lincoln, drawing strength from his steady presence. "Because I realized that success isn't just measured by titles or compensation. It's measured by impact." When the meeting concluded, Harrington asked Olivia and Lincoln to remain behind. "That was either the bravest or most foolish career move I've witnessed in 30 years of business," he said, his expression unreadable. "Thomas wanted you removed from consideration entirely based on this personal arrangement." Olivia straightened her shoulders. "And your decision?" "I'm creating a new position. Executive Director of Community Impact, reporting directly to me. The salary matches Global Director, but the focus is implementing the vision you just presented." He turned to Lincoln. "With Mr. Hayes as our educational advisor, if he's willing." Outside the building, Lincoln turned to her with wonder in his eyes. You gave up the position you wanted. No, Olivia corrected softly. I chose something better. Something that matters more. For the first time in her adult life, she'd made a decision based not on fear of abandonment but on hope for belonging. I need to ask you something, she said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. Was Mia right? About how you feel when you talk about me? Lincoln's expression softened. What did she say? That you smile different. Like you used to in old pictures with Sarah. His gaze held hers, vulnerability matching vulnerability. Mia has always been perceptive. I'm not very good at this, Olivia admitted. Connecting. Being seen. 20 years of emotional armor doesn't come off easily. And I've spent 4 years defining myself by loss, Lincoln replied. Perhaps we both have something to learn. He reached for her hand, his touch gentle but certain. Mia has piano practice tonight. Would you like to come over afterward? Not as part of any arrangement. Just because we want you there. Yes, she said simply. I'd like that very much. 3 months later, Olivia stood in the back of the school auditorium, but this time without hiding. Beside her, Lincoln waited with barely contained pride as Mia took the stage for the fall music showcase. The changes in all their lives were both subtle and profound. Olivia's office now displayed Mia's artwork alongside her professional certificates. Lincoln had been hired as a consultant for Horizon's new educational outreach program, and Mia had blossomed with the steady presence of 2 adults who adored her. When Mia finally sat at the piano, she looked out at the audience, finding them immediately this time. The smile that illuminated her face before she began playing was worth more than any corporate achievement Olivia had ever pursued. The piece was more complex than the simple melody from her first recital, still Beethoven, but with challenging passages that Mia navigated with determination if not yet perfect precision. Olivia had spent weekends teaching her, discovering a patience she'd never known she possessed, and a joy in sharing something she'd once abandoned. As the final notes faded, Mia looked directly at them, her expression seeking approval. The audience applauded politely, but Lincoln and Olivia rose to their feet, their standing ovation making Mia beam with pride. Later, as they explored their new house, a modestly sized 3-bedroom they'd found halfway between Lincoln's school and Olivia's office, Mia burst into the kitchen, dirt smudged on her cheeks. The flowers are growing. And I found a nest with baby birds. Come see. As they followed her to the backyard, Lincoln's hand found Olivia's, their fingers intertwining naturally. Dad says we have to be careful not to scare the mama bird, Mia explained in a whisper. She might think we want to hurt her babies. She's just protecting what matters most to her, Olivia replied, understanding the instinct more deeply than she once could have. Like you and Dad protect me, Mia said, with a child's straightforward perception. Lincoln's arm slipped around Olivia's waist as they stood together watching both the birds and the child who had, somehow, become theirs to protect. Later, as they locked up the house, their house, Olivia looked back at it with a sense of wonder. This wasn't the life she had meticulously planned. It wasn't the achievement-oriented existence she'd constructed as armor against abandonment. It was messier, more complicated, and infinitely more meaningful, a life built not around what she'd lost, but around what she'd found when she finally had the courage to open her heart. You know, Lincoln said softly as they drove home. When you offered me $10,000 to be your plus one, I never imagined we'd end up here. Olivia smiled, reaching for his hand. Neither did I. But I'm very glad we did.